We'll now move on to the Collision Settings tab on all of our dynamic objects. This includes collision shape, bounce, and friction settings. So as we discussed in an earlier video, the dynamic shape is an important setting to adjust depending on your objects in your scene. Usually automatic will work fine, as we have here on the coin object. And using automatic, the physics engine in Cinema 4D calculates as efficiently as it can for each dynamic shape, basically using a low-poly shell of your object to create the collision simulation. Now let's move on to our table. And for table, we're going to change the shape to box, which is actually the fastest to calculate in a dynamic simulation. And we already went over the static mesh shape for the MoText object here that actually takes into account the actual geometry of your object. So objects can then fall in the cracks and crevices of your object. So now let's move on to our bounce. Bounce adjusts how much elastic bounce there is when two objects collide into one another. So let's go to our table. We're going to adjust the bounce value to about 30. And for the text and coins, let's bring our value way up to say 95. We have to use higher than normal values due to a higher custom mass on our coins. Next, let's look at friction, which of course is the force that slows down objects in motion. The less friction, the more objects will slide along surfaces and take a longer time to come to rest. So since our coins will need a high friction to allow the coins to not slide much, we'll adjust the friction of our coins in our Table Dynamics tab to 100. And let's go to the MoText. We'll just leave the friction value at the default value of 30%. Now collision noise will keep the same for all of our Dynamics tabs. Basically, this controls the amount of randomness in our collisions. The higher the amount, the less similar collisions will be for numerous objects. So you'll see that adjusting these settings in the Collision tab helps us get a more accurate dynamics calculation and more realistic coin movement.